We sometimes don't think about where prisoners go and who looks after them. In today's show, we're going to be talking to someone who has that as a career and hear all about what he does. Hi, welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. This is Joey Busuttil, and today's show we're going to be speaking to Rob Andrews, someone that works within the prison system, and he's going to be telling us all about what it's like and how he got on that journey. Rob, how are you?
Good, Joey. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much that you took the time out today to talk to us about your job and about what happens in a prison. Because a lot of the times, I think a lot of people base their assumptions on watching television. I know that when I watch Wentworth, I always message you going, "Oh my God, is this really happening?" So
Yeah.
thanks for being able to change and give us some information about what really goes on. So before we start, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself? Just a bit of an introduction about you?
Yep, sure. So, as you said, my name's Rob. I'm 44. I have two awesome teenage kids, and I have a wonderful partner. So, yeah.
Good. So how did you, I don't know if this is a weird question, but how did you come across doing corrections as a career? Was it something that I guess crossed your path, or was it something that you've always thought about?
Yeah. Well, it definitely wasn't something I'd always thought about. I'd spent most of my adult life, my career was in retail, and I'd worked for Woolworths and Dick Smith and Dan Murphy, and basically 20 years of retail. And I found that I was getting a bit disenchanted, and the energy for the job wasn't there, and I just felt I needed a change. I get to that midlife sort of crisis, and it was time for a change. So my partner at the time was working for corrections and suggested that I look into the role, and I initially just laughed and said, "There's no way I want to do that." But then the more I researched, the more I looked into it, I thought, well, possibly this could be the chance that I get to actually change my life, but also change someone else's life.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So I guess you did have some of the misconceptions, like say I would, because I don't really know much about it. So when you started and you got the job, what was was it what you expected, or was it something straight out of Oz?
So I guess like you, I'd seen a lot of TV, a lot of movies, and for me, it felt very stereotypical. You go in, you lock them up, and then that's the end of the day. Like it seemed to be very much a combative sort of environment.
So does that mean that well, if that's what you were expecting, can you tell us what it is?
So on a day-to-day basis, it's very much like walking into a university campus. It's a big open spaces. It's full of people that are there for the same purpose. We have a common goal that we're working towards. In the back of our minds, the main thing we're doing is trying to keep the community safe, keep each other safe, but also care for the people that are in our custody. So it's very different to what you would expect. There's a lot more engagement with the offenders. You're talking a lot more than what you probably would have thought. There's a lot more positive interactions. It's really about getting to know the people who are in our care, finding out what makes them tick, finding out what happened to them to then come to custody, and then trying to find solutions or lead them into the right direction that will hopefully release them back into the community in a better way than they came in.
Okay. And so when you started, I guess there would have been, some learning curves because you went from retail to working in a correction facility. So what were some of the obstacles that you faced personally, say the first 3 months of becoming a corrections officer?
Sure. So the prison that I originally went into, a lot of the staff, they were very old school, and there was a particular culture, a particular way that they did things, and um, having a new officer come into their territory is sort of encroaching on them a little bit, I guess. So
Mm.
um, I found it hard as someone who came from retail, where I was very much a people person. I just want to interact and be part of the team and get in there and do that, to finding myself not being talked to because I'm a new person, or that you have to prove yourself before they'll actually sort of start interacting with you in a positive way. Um, I guess my own self-confidence and my own fears and my own sort of things about what's going to happen. I'm working in this prison with all these scary people, and am I going to be bashed every day, or am I going to have to deal with certain situations? All those fears you have to deal with as well. They give you a great training around doing that, but it's not if you're actually in that situation. You're not sure how you're actually going to react. Now, the big thing for me was actually to do with my sexuality, because I disclosed my sexuality during the interview process, the recruitment process, and it was unknown to me that had actually been spread to the rest of the prison. So by the time I got into this prison after squad, everyone knew who I was, and everyone knew what where I was coming from in that respect, which made it really difficult for me because I had to then prove myself as a capable officer without being judged on who I loved.
Right.
So that was.
Are you the only like openly gay officer?
No, I wasn't the only, but I was the new boy on the block.
Yeah.
So
Okay. And what about the actual prisoners? Like, do they? You know, I don't know if you can share this information, but like, do they try and manipulate or try and win things over, like we might see it on TV, or are they pretty much just like you and I, just everyday people?
there's both. There's everyday people in there, and they're just doing their time, just want to get through and just get out. And then there are the ones that are in there for a long time, and they get bored. Like if there's nothing to do, so we become the fascination for them, and we become the game for them. So there is definitely, I would say, opportunities for, or there are scenarios where the offenders or prisoners may try to play the game, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I mean, I can imagine it's like they're locked up. There's no access to a lot of things, but at the same time, they do get, they're treated fairly and they get facilities, don't they? They can watch TV and all
Yep.
those sort of things. So, do you find that some of the prisoners are, really focused on getting a better life and they want to take advantage of, you were saying to me once, I think a few weeks ago, that there's courses that they can do and stuff. Are there more of those prisoners, or are there more prisoners that are sort of like they go down the path of, say, mental health issues?
Yeah. So I don't know the stats or anything like that. And being I work in a remand facility, the prisoners actually haven't been convicted of anything at this stage. So the opportunities for them to engage or to think about what's going to happen post conviction, or if they do get convicted, is slightly different if they were sentenced location. But very similar to being in the community, there's people in the community that are very focused on being, working on their career, working on education, seeking help. But then there's people in the community that may not be, and if that's reflected in the prison system as well. So there's some, they get into the system and they take advantage of every opportunity that's available to them. And then there's some that actually you need to encourage and motivate them to try and do that. And then there's ones that just don't want a bar of it.
Right. Okay. So if I was to go in, I've asked you this before. I always wondered this question. Do you think someone like me, like you know me well enough now, like would I survive?
Yes, you definitely would survive. Yes.
Okay, isn't it interesting how when you see things on television, television really blows things up, because I'm really into Wentworth, and I know Wentworth is a female prison and it's a hardcore prison, but it just makes it seem so full on, that's what's going on. So it's really not fair, I guess, for you guys, because I guess you probably get that question a lot at dinner parties and all that, where you tell them what you do for work, and then people go, "Oh my God, is it like Wentworth?" Do you get a lot of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And they want to hear the stories, or they want to hear about the famous person, or and of course we have our own privacy, so we can't disclose anything particular, but we can talk in generalities. But um, it really comes down to the attitude you come into prison. So if you come into the prison and you've got a massive ego and you don't respect people, you don't listen, you don't communicate, you're there for yourself and rah rah rah. It it makes it very difficult when you're in an enclosed, uh, yard or enclosed unit with 100 other blokes and you're being rude, disrespectful, and not engaging in a positive manner, then you're going to have issues. But if you come into it with an open mind, you're respectful, you keep to yourself, you do the things that you're asked to do, then you're not going to have a problem.
Mm. What would be, say, one of the hardest things for a new prisoner to go through? Is it the adapting to the schedule, or is it the other prisoners? Like, what would be the hardest thing?
Um, I think if you've never been in prison before, you're coming in with all of those preconceived ideas and notions of what it is actually like. And then the reception process can be quite daunting for some people because there is a lot of people asking you a lot of questions, and you might be tired, you might be a little bit hungry, you might be a little bit cranky, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into this unit with 100 other people, and you could be a little bit wild-eyed until you get to see someone or you settle into a space that you feel comfortable. I think the main thing is, for someone who's new into custody is communicate and ask the questions, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Well, on that note, because this podcast is about men's mental health, and you work in a men's prison, so what are some of the ways that you help guys in prison deal with their mental health?
Yep. So as soon as they come in, they're assessed. They're assessed physically and mentally. So at that time, they can disclose if they've got any issues or any past history, or how they're feeling at the moment. And from there, there's different streams that can be referred to. There's lots of different providers that from the outside that will work with offenders on the inside, and it really is about being upfront and honest about where you're at, not only with the mental health providers, but with the staff. So then we're aware of what's going on. We can actually adapt how we interact with that particular prisoner, or if they're in a situation where they're not safe or they're not feeling that like they can not hurt themselves, for example, then we can do what we need to do to keep them safe.
Right. So if they don't disclose how they're feeling, is it noticeable? Like, I guess you'd know if someone's got anxiety or if someone's got depression, right? And because it's a remand center,
Yeah.
I'd say it's probably easier to manage and sort of to help them. So there would be counselors and those sort of people working there.
Definitely. So, we have the outside providers actually work in the prison, so it's easy to make referrals. We have also peer support prisoners. So if they don't want to talk to a staff member, they don't want to talk to a stakeholder such as a mental health professional, then they have their peers that they can talk to, which then they can then refer them on to a particular mental health stream.
Right.
So there's lots of different options for them if they don't want to talk to staff.
Yeah. So do you mind if we extend that a little bit now to family? So what have you observed about, say, the parents or the spouses of people that are in prison? Like, I'm what have you noticed of some of the emotions or some of the mental health issues that they may experience?
I guess it really comes. You can see them when they come they come to visit their loved one in custody. They're often very stressed because all of a sudden they're going from having a normal life on the outside to suddenly coming into a maximum security prison where they have to go through all these, seemingly they could be seen as invasive procedures. Having to be wandered down, having to be, going through special machines to test for drugs, or going through the X-ray machine, and then making sure you can bring only a certain amount of money in for snacks, and making sure that if you are bringing in money to give to your loved one, that it's the exact amount or the right amount of clothing. Like, there's a lot of conditions and rules, and suddenly that loved one is suddenly they're not in jail, but they're suddenly got all these extra rules in their life that they never had before. So it can be quite stressful. And you look from the children's point of view, and they're coming to see dad or their uncle or their brother or whatever it is, and they're going through these processes as well. And you start to wonder, well, how's this going to impact on them, later in life? So I think sometimes the prisoners forget in the heat of the moment or whatever they're doing that what they're doing is actually going to have a big impact on their family.
Mm. And I guess, yeah, I guess because you said earlier that it's a remand center. So can you just give me an idea of when you said some of it in there for a long time, like how long is a long time? Is it like it's years, isn't it?
Yeah, so if there some prisoners maybe have some fairly hefty charges, and depending on the court situation and how big their case is, they may be in there for 3 or 4 years. So, which is a huge amount of time to be on remand, and technically you're not guilty of anything. So that's very stressful, very
Yeah,
stressful.
yeah. Do you mind if I ask also about how you guys manage coronavirus? Like, I know that wasn't one of the questions that I was going to ask, but I'm just curious. Like, is it just like we're managing it here? I mean, I guess I'm in lockdown, right? So, but they're in lockdown all the time.
Yeah.
So, how do you manage, for example, you um, being able to not bring someone like an officer not bringing in something like a virus into the prison?
Yeah. So basically, whatever the community standards are in the community reflects is basically what we do in the location as well. So, for example, a prisoner comes into a prison, um, they go into quarantine for 2 weeks. So, just for example, if we went to Queensland or New South Wales, we would have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. So we treat
Right.
it like that. For a staff member to come in, we get temperature checked every day. We have to wear face masks. We have to wear face shields or goggles. We get there's so much protective wear out there to protect the prisoners from us, I guess, because we're the ones that are liable
Mm.
to bring it into the location. So it's very stringent. It almost feels sometimes like we're working in a healthcare center or a hospital or something like that, because there is a very high standard of protective, clothing that we do have to wear.
Mm. So for you personally, what are some of the things that you've noticed about you that have changed as a man? Because you went from retail to corrections. I mean, there must have been some major changes that you experienced or explored.
Definitely. I consider myself to be more empathetic now. I'm definitely less. I'm not. I don't judge as probably as readily as I used to. In retail, it's very easy to judge because people walk in a particular look or a particular clothes they're wearing, and you instantly make a judgment about that. And I was guilty of that. Now I don't find myself in that situation. I actually find myself taking the time to get to know the person. Um, you know, looking, we get to be aware of what the prisoners' charges are, for example. And in the early days, I would be very interested about to see why this person was actually in here and what was. But now I actually find myself more drawn to what brought them into here rather than what the event was. So, is there something that happened in their past? Is there an unresolved trauma? Is there something that's going on that hasn't been resolved? That's what I need to be working on, and that's what I think I've changed, not only as a father and as a friend and as a prison officer, is that I actually taken the time to actually get to know these people and develop uh, a rapport, I get a professional rapport, so that we can explore what's going on, so we can hopefully address it and make some changes. Um, I think from an occupational hazard point of view, I'm very hyper vigilant. So if I go to a restaurant, for example, or a bar, I make sure I seat myself in a particular way that I can see the doorway, or my back's to the wall. I'm a huge people watcher now, so I might be in a room, people think I'm ignoring them, but I'm actually studying the room, which is an occupational thing. I think a lot of prison officers do that. And one you're probably going to be laughing at is I double check the doors. So if I'm locking a door, I'll actually double check the door to make sure it's locked. So because what we do is in our job. So yeah.
Yeah. If someone listening right now wanted to become a prison officer, like what would be your recommendations in regards to, I guess the process or even considering it? Like what advice would you give them?
I think you need to be a people person. You need to be able to believe that people can change, and you need to have that empathy or that understanding that the crime doesn't define the person. That they are human. We are human, and we make mistakes. Um, I think you need to go into the role thinking that you're not alpha male, that you don't have to be Superman to do this job. Some of the most successful prison officers come from a retail background, or from a hairdressing background, or from a tradie background. These are the backgrounds that are people person, that you can communicate well, that you can understand people and relate to people. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you can communicate and show respect and empathy, you're going to be a successful prison officer.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rob, for your time talking to us today. You've definitely lifted the veil on what some of our misconceptions may be. But I do need to ask you one more question. Is there such thing as a top dog?
There's definitely a pecking order, yes.
Okay, cool. All right, well, thanks, Rob. Thank you so much, and good luck with everything that you're doing moving forward.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Well, you've been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. This is Joey Busuttil. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and hit like so you get notified of our next podcast. A new podcast is out every Monday morning at 9 a.m. See you later, guys. Bye.